morning, happy Monday, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands. Wow, I just can't do it. Disembodied Hands, pretty much Quindy, okay? Just pretty much. Let's just leave it there. Maybe we have a couple of disembodied brains, like, floating around, like, that might be named Justin and John, but at this point, as far as the hands, it's all Quindy. It's all Quindy, man. Pretty much Quindy. Oh, happy vacation, Kirst. Yeah. Quindy it is. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Nice, nice, nice. Ah, nice Maldricar finished. Very, very nice. Yeah, Kirst. Now, just imagine how cool of a Maldricar you could paint if you had time. Or is it the deadline that made you finish it? Because that's totally it with a big project, right? It's like you have to have the deadline or you're just like, it's so much. Quindy all along. It's been Quindy all along. Yeah. Yep. We can, like, make up little songs about Quindy. I'm sure she'd rather we didn't. Pretty much it. All right. Hi, guys. How are you all? It is Monday. I'm trying to be on my Monday because, like, Monday. You could just keep going and going and going. Yeah. Ah, that's too bad, Airways. Yes. Ah, water conservation, yeah. Yep. Yeah. But, hey, at least you're here, Airways. At least you're here. You've got painting time, too, right? If you've got time to watch me, you've got time to paint. But yeah. Yeah, we're restricted as well, I believe, here in Santa Clara County. A quarancation. Oh, no. Is that you know what? That probably is a word, isn't it? It's now in the public consciousness. Oh, boy. All right. What the heck am I doing here anyway? Ah. Yep. Yeah, I went to a little local shop this weekend and had to mask. We've got mask mandates in Alameda, and a lot of places in Santa Clara are just choosing to do it again, so. Yep. Plaguecation. Okay, Plaguecation actually sounds like it has more of a ring to it. I don't know. Yeah, right. Quindy. Yes. 100% on the nose. What the heck am I doing here anyway? Oh, we're working on this mini. That's right. It's Monday. I reserve the right to be what the heck am I doing here anyway on Monday, all right? Dang it. So we were doing all those little cute little ringlets on her. Let's actually get her in focus. How about that? That might be a bonus start right there. Yeah, so we did the cool little freehand bit, and then we did some cute little scallops going out from that, and it really improves, like, it really fancies up the dress, doesn't it? Because the dress is fancy already, but look at how much fancier the front looks with just those little touches as opposed to the back, which is blank. You like Plaguecation? Plaguecation has more of a ring to it. Plaguecation would be the closest, yeah. Well then, mood, everybody. What the heck are we doing here anyway? Oh, man. This is going to be one of those weeks. I have some details that I didn't pick out also. You know, I was thinking of doing a little bit of the black, because you just have a little tiny touches of black here and there, and I was thinking about picking up some of that today, as well as getting, there's just some little gold details here, doing some more freehand, things like that. So let's just do a variety of things today. So let's grab I think I was using, I don't remember what black I was using. What the heck am I doing here anyway? Is really Dragon Black with a little bit of blue liner, I think. Probably, sounds like that might have been. Camp driveway. Yep. It depends on the brand, Ms. Blitz. I really don't have 5. Like, I do everything with very few brushes. Like, honestly, if you're just starting out, you probably want to get kind of a little bit of a medium-sized synthetic, like a size 0 or 1. You want to get a tiny brush, like my little Da Vinci's triple aught or an aught 10 Reaper Kolinsky. But otherwise, I mean, the bulk of my painting, like almost all of it, I just do with one brush. And which brush that is just varies. It varies by the model. And most of the time, it's going to be, like, I probably do 90% of my painting just with one brush. Which that's a Series 10 size 1 Da Vinci. Like, seriously, at least 90%, maybe more. But every once in a while, if I'm working on a bigger model, I'll switch up to the Raphael, which I talked to you about last time, which is a slightly bigger but still very pointy brush. And then if I'm doing really fine detail and I feel like I want a lot of control, if I'm using really, really thin paint, I'll switch to the tiny brush. But I mean, the size is going to vary by the line, right? So, like, the brand is important. I can't just say pick up a size 1, pick up a size triple aught or whatever. I can't just do that because those are different sizes in every brush line. So, but bottom line is, like, you want one good, really pointy, medium-sized brush to do the bulk of, like, the work with. You might want a synthetic for base coating because you tend to, you know, glob a bit more paint on during base coating, and maybe you want a synthetic so you're not messing up your really good brush. Keep a tiny detail brush. Not really tiny, but like this one next to my fingernail, you can see it. This is the tiniest I would use, by the way. I normally would use one that was a slightly bigger one than this, but you can see it next to that 28mm base. It's about a quarter of the length of the base. I would not go any tinier than this. Because the smaller you go, the more the paint's going to dry on your brush, the faster. I do not know everything. Nobody does. But I've been doing painting and art for a very long time. So, but I think, I mean, I have a lot of brushes here next to me, but I really only reach like 90% of the time. I just use one. So the most important thing is to have a moderately, like a medium-sized brush with a really good tip. That's it. I can do everything with this. Like, I don't have to reach for tiny brush. Tiny brush just makes some things easier if you are using really thin paint. Tiny brush means you don't have to unload your brush as much. So that's just the way that it rocks. Let's see here. Oh, there. Okay, I was going to unlimber like a new Da Vinci today, wasn't I? Because I was getting sick of my old Da Vinci being really shot through. But yeah, I don't really even use a synthetic for base coating. I will use sometimes, I have a Reaper Kolinsky here that's a size 0. That's a pretty good size for base coating. So if I'm going to just use a bigger, fatter brush for base coating, I'm just using my Reaper Black Barrel one. And the difference between these is just width. Because when you're base coating, you want a lot of paint onto the model fast so that you can get through it. So you can see how much thicker the Reaper brush is on the right compared to the skinny Da Vinci on the left. So the skinny Da Vinci is going to be better at detail work and highlighting and shading and being precise, but the Reaper brush is going to be better and faster at base coating. So if I had to say, like, you know, these are very similar in size, even though the Reaper is like a size 0 and the Da Vinci is a size 1. That's what I mean about you can't, like, just assign one size to every brand. It'll always be different. All right, let's get back to our mixing our off blue black so that I can highlight this little pipe and her fan. And I'm going to mix up some white so I can do more of those details. I mean, there's terrain, but yeah, if you're painting terrain, it's different. I assume that Maze has been asking mostly about painting figures, so terrain brushes. And I mentioned previously on a stream that I use a big, big brush for terrain. So I'm just going to do like 4 drops of Dragon Black, and I'm going to do a drop of blue liner. I just want to make it a little colder because all the colors on her are quite warm. If I want a lot of contrast, then I'll go a little bit colder with the fan. There. And then that's just straight up black pretty much. So I am going to keep that around because I'll probably need that for adjusting details if I paint over something. Make paint? No, not at all. Like, I did it. I think I'm the only painter who did it. Oh, wait, no, Mike McVeigh has done it. He was before me. There is no instruction book for making your own paint for miniatures, Maze. If you're looking to do that, if you're looking to set up your own company, if you're in the USA, you could ask Reaper if they could give you advice, but Reaper won't just share everything with you. Our process is proprietary. That said, Ed has often taken new company owners in and essentially just talked to business with them to set them up in the right way. I don't know if he has the time for that nowadays, but it's something he used to enjoy doing. But in general, this is why miniatures companies employ other companies, paint companies, to make their paint, is because in order to do it yourself, you kind of have to figure it out yourself, or hire somebody from one of those paint companies who understands how to do it. But it's a very large, expensive investment. Like, it cost Reaper tens of thousands of dollars to create their paint lab with all the equipment. And actually now, with the paint machines, it cost us probably over $300,000. Like, that's a guess, just because I know how much Audrey costs, and now we've got, other machines and maybe a second. Like, we've got all these augmented stuff. So let's just say we've dumped a lot of money into being able to make our own paint as a company. A lot of money. So it's not something that your average person off the street can do. Could you do it on a shoestring budget? If you knew what you were doing, yes. Like, currently, I could go out and set up my own paint lab probably for about, let me do the math. I could probably set up my own paint lab for about $20,000 to $30,000. But it would cost me $20,000 or $30,000. That's just a guesstimate. And, but that's because I know what I'm doing, and I would know what I absolutely needed as opposed to what would be nice. And I would also, if I did that, I would be letting myself in for a lot of labor, because I would be purposefully cutting corners, and then I would have to do extra work to make up for saving that money. So essentially it's a trade-off of time v money. I would never do that because my time is very valuable to me. So it's like, it is not cheap. It is not cheap. Yeah, right. That's why I kind of scaled up to the 20 to 30 mark. Like, technically, in the olden days, maybe 10, 15K, maybe 20K. 20K probably. Pigment is expensive. And that's not even counting any advertising costs or free samples you give out to promote your line or anything else. In order to do this, Maze, bottom line, learn business. You need to know something about business. Like, overhead costs and, how to mark up, like sales markups and how much of a margin you need to make and how much your hourly is going to cost. And it sounds terribly boring, but it is the way to make a successful company. And I will tell you also, if you thought it would be cool to, like, make your own paint line, paint is actually one of the worst things to make in the miniatures market as far as margin, because paint is very expensive to make. And you can't price it really high because then people won't buy it. So essentially, the margin that you make off of paint is much less than the margin that you make off of anything else in miniatures. Because pigment is really expensive. Well, yeah, but people are reinventing the wheel every day, Kirst. I mean, there are new paint lines coming out every year. Like, some company will hire somebody to do something, or Scale 75 will run a new Kickstarter with new stuff. And it's good that people are iterating. Like, if people weren't trying to reinvent the wheel, then I wouldn't have my Scale Color tube paints, and I also wouldn't have, like, the Scale Color oil paints, and stuff like that, right? So I'm all for people trying to do it better, because, I mean, especially now that I'm no longer the mad scientist behind the paint at Reaper, I'm interested in what other companies are doing. There's new products coming out all the time. Like, in the paint industry, like the general industrial paint industry and art, and then the textile industry, and then the art industry eventually, like, just steals what those other two industries have done. I learned that this is pretty much the case. So there's bound to be new technology out there. There's bound to be, like, better options for X, Y, or Z. And this is why, like, it's okay to iterate. Like, it's good. Yes, I was the original mad scientist, just not the current one. I even had a mad scientist coat at one point. Yeah, well, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I already decided I wouldn't do it. Nomad Zeke, it would require me to totally redo my business model, because right now digital products are pretty easy deliverables and don't take up any space, and I don't have to pay taxes on them. But the minute you add merchandise in, you're adding in storage, and you're adding in taxes on unsold product, and you're adding in you're adding in a lot, and it's just nothing that I really want to do. If I wasn't happy with other paint lines out there, then I might be motivated to make my own. But I'm perfectly happy with Reaper and with a lot of the scale stuff. So, yeah, just refresh Grable. I don't think any mad scientist has tenure because, I left. I haven't tried the golden heavy body. Maze, I prefer a thinner paint though, so I would not enjoy a heavy body paint. Understand that the paint line you do best with is going to be tied to the style that you are using. I like to use paint that is very watered down, and so that means that a heavy body paint, for me, just means I have to work harder to get the paint to the consistency that I want. Heavy-bodied paints also typically separate more on the palette when I thin them, so I don't like them at all. It doesn't matter. Like, get this thing in your head, Maze. The only good paint is the one that works for you in your style. Some people, that's going to be a paint over here, paint X. Some people, it's going to be paint Y. Some people, it's going to be paint AA. Like, everybody's doing stuff with all sorts of different stuff. Like, Wapple's using God knows what oils, right? The painters in Spain using heavy body paint. I use, like, a thin, light-bodied or medium-bodied paint, and we all get great results. We all do amazing work. So all that matters is using a whole bunch of different things until you find the product that you enjoy. At this point, any good paint line that's not a craft paint that's an art paint line or a hobby, in this case, miniatures paint line. All of these paints are very high quality. So usually the difference between them will be the exact pigments used and whether it's a heavy or medium bodied paint. Like the paint base is what we call it. So I'm just lightening up things a little bit, guys, by the way, in prelude for doing some lighter strands on these ostrich plumes. It's fine, Carbon. I find that a lot of people, especially overseas, haven't, because it's hard to get Reaper in Europe, especially. But even in local places, like, especially if people have started out with, like, Army Painter or they've started out with Games Workshop, a lot of them haven't tried Reaper. If you ever want to try Reaper, then the colors I would say start with would be our pure white for sure, best white in the business, in my opinion, humble biased opinion, and the pure black. Painters that use other paint lines, even they will say that they really love our pure black. So those would be two that you could try. That would be a really cheap way to try a couple of Reaper paints. The other thing you could do is pick up our starter kit if you wanted to try a range of colors. The starter kit has about 12 colors in it, of different lines and different hues. So you can get kind of a sampling across. And it's not that expensive because it's 12. Not many stores that carry it. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, a lot of people have that. Now, that said, Carbon, be aware that if you order directly from Reaper, you will get the freshest paint. Ordering like off of Amazon or eBay or local game store, especially if the paint doesn't move very fast, you can end up with paint that's already years old by the time you get it. If you order directly from Reaper, you're almost guaranteed, like, the paint is going to be less than a year old, and sometimes it's, like, fresh, like, made the previous, in the last month for the very popular colors. And I find that although our paint does stay good for, like, 10 to 15 years in the bottle, as long as you shake it every few years, I do like it, like, if fresh paint means that you've got more longevity as it sits in your collection. If you get a paint that's already 4 years old, maybe you only have 10 years on it. If you get a paint that's fresh, you might have 15 or more years on it, depending on how you take care of it. So, How much are you thinning it, Airways? Yeah, Squidmar, yeah, recently did a product review and we ended up second, I think. And the only reason I think that they put us second is they said that they were more familiar with the other paint line they placed first. But they thought we were interesting. That's good to know, Matt. Some of like the heavier bodied paints, like we do use those high density pigments, and NMM Gold Base has a lot of that in it. So sometimes that will cause some separation. But I mean, but what I would recommend, Airways, like NMM Gold Base, that's a weird one. Like it just starts to another thing I'd ask is how much is it separating? Like, you know, there's slight separation where you can see a little bit of a swirl of color on the top, but then there's like heavy separation. But what do you know the exact ratio? I'm asking for exact ratio, Arrowiz. Do you know what ratio you're thinning your paints at? You should. You don't have to. A lot of people aren't in the habit of analyzing what they do, I know. But for me, if you tell me that you're thinning it 2-to-1, or if you tell me you're thinning it 4-to-1, that makes a huge difference. So that's why I wondered if you knew. Because it's hard for me to troubleshoot if I don't know exactly how much you're thinning it. And I guess the other question is, are you using a wet palette? Or are you using a well? Because that's going to make a big difference. Well palette, you did, wait, that doesn't make sense. 1-to-1? Did you mean 4-to-1 or none? I didn't get that. Because 1-to-1 is very different from none. Base coat usually 4-to-1. If it's separating at a 4-to-1, I would be worried, actually, that there was something wrong with it. If it's significant separation. If it's just got a tiny swirl of pigment on the top, sometimes that happens with those yellow-based paints. But it shouldn't be significant. With a 4-to-1, it should be, like... With a 4-to-1, it should be really solid. But if it's a 1-to-1, that's layering consistency. So I would definitely, I would think at that point, if it stays, you know, and starts to separate at the 5-minute mark, that's actually okay, given the pigments that are in it. All right, actually, I need more white. I just thinned my white 2-to-1, speaking of, and it turned to water. But notice it is not separating. Ah! Okay, that was a lot of white. Oops. But yeah, so if you're thinning your paint about 4-to-1 or you're not thinning it at all, you should not see separation if the paint is good. If you are seeing separation at that point, then either you need to shake it more. Do be aware that yellow-based paints, which NMM Gold base is, need to be shaken like bejeebus. They seriously need to be shaken up a lot. Hey, 32 months on a 31-month streak. Daffodweir making us all feel like just somehow not quite that good. Like I'm going to remember to do anything for 31 months in a row. Well done. But yeah, so if you are not thinning the paint and you are shaking it really well, because it is possible that the yellow is just not fully mixed in. Because that's the only way. If you're using it full strength, there's no way you see separation unless it's not adequately shaken, Arrowiz. If you've shaken the bejeebus out of it and don't see any clear fluid and it's got a good consistency, it feels like paint and doesn't feel kind of goopy or plasticky, that's what happens when you got too much base in there, if it's separated in the bottle. But if it looks like regular paint when you put it in and then it's separating with no water in it, then you've maybe got a frozen bottle from a long time ago. And keep in mind that even if you bought the paint recently and it was a hot weather, and during June, that your local game store may have shipped it during the winter, or maybe you ordered it during the winter. That's how paint gets frozen. But it shouldn't do that, no. Auto renew for the win. You don't even have to brain. That's the best. I like not having to brain. So I'm going to take some of my medium gray here. I'm going to just do a little spot mix with my white. I do this a lot when I don't want to mix up a whole well of something. So I kind of use my my well palette like a wet palette sometimes. So I want to get some some lighter areas up in top here by the hand, and then I'm going to bring in another kind of stripe of lighter feathers down here. But yeah, so first would be make sure you're shaking the bottle up like really, really well. The yellows they do that. It's the sad fact of yellow. And then if you are shaking it up really well, I would shake it. What I typically do with some of those bottles, especially if they've been sitting around, is I will shake it well, and then I'll squeeze it a little bit out, like kind of and look at it. And if I see any clear fluid at all, or any kind of swirl of pigment in that one drop, then I'll put the cap back on and shake it again, and usually after that it's fine. So definitely the yellows do, yellow paints with a heavy load of high solid yellow pigment will, high density yellow pigment will have that problem on occasion. But once you've got it shaken up, then it shouldn't be doing that. And if it is doing that, then you've got a bad bottle. Then I would just reorder. Contact Reaper customer service if you haven't used it. If it's like a fresh new bottle and you're getting that. Because sometimes stuff happens. And it's useful if you also give Reaper the lot number, which is it's the set of letters and numbers on the side by the Texas. By the little Texas on the label. There will be a set of letters and numbers. Then you can kind of give those to Reaper, and then Reaper can check the batch if that batch is still. 4 drops of paint. Water's always the second. It's paint to water. 4-to-1 paint to water. For a base coat, you want the paint thicker. So if you think about it, that makes sense. 4-to-1 or 1-to-4 paint to water is like super thin, like break the paint thin. I don't think I would ever use. The only thing I might use a 1-to-4 with, and I'm not sure that this is even true, but maybe, would be if I'm doing a glaze of pure white. I think that is the only paint and the only technique that you would ever thin a paint 1-to-4. Otherwise, that is way beyond what will break most paints, and it's not a terribly useful solution because you don't carry enough pigment to do much of anything. But with high coverage, very highly pigmented paints like pure white, then, there we go. Yeah, you can always email help@reapermini.com. Thanks, Quindy. No, it wouldn't, because that one NMM Gold base is hugely pigmented, like immensely pigmented. You wouldn't notice the same because to get the vibrancy of that color that NMM Gold base has, like there's a bunch of different yellows loaded into it. So it's not like, and different paints in a triad are not going to have the same like pigment load in them. And they're not necessarily even going to use the same base. Remember, we use like 14 different bases at Reaper. So the base that we choose is dependent on the usage of the paint. So a lot of the shadow colors actually are in a different base than midtones or highlights, because the shadow colors need to be, if you're going to do a wash with them, we want them a little more translucent. So I might use a different color. And there certainly will be different pigments in the shadow color, and that will affect it. I mean, it's all pretty common sense. It's like you're mixing a different color, you're going to use a slightly different, it's not going to have all the same pigments in it. It may have some stuff in common, and almost always does, but depends on how different the colors are. Bones. Bones is the pinnacle of my my paint creation career. That said, there are some things you'll want to get from Core if you decide you like the line carbon. Like the special effects like type paints are in Core, like the clear brights, which are single pigment colors, and the liners. And I use a lot of liner. I'm using blue liner mixed into my regular paint for this ostrich plume right now. So blue and brown liner especially. All of the sealers and primers are in Core. And you're just going to get a bigger color selection in Core. You're going to get more muted colors. So if you like the softer tones of more muted paints, Core has a nice selection. Bones is generally a smaller line, so obviously you're not going to get quite as much. The other difference is that if you're very comfortable with paint mixing, then Bones is probably going to give you a little more bang for your buck. Whereas Core, we made in triads so that each triad has, you know, a mid-tone, a highlight, and a shadow. Now, you don't have to stick to those, but if you aren't comfortable with mixing, it can be a nice way to get comfortable. Like, it gives you options that you can go to, or you can decide to spring out. So for beginners, but it doesn't sound like you're a beginner necessarily. So the triad system is really handy. If there's a color and you're not sure how to shade or highlight it, look for something like it in Core, and then you can pick up the triad and you've got a shadow and a highlight. One thing I'll tell you, Carbon, is that, as I mentioned to Maze, Reaper paint is a very different animal from most of the other paints on the market. We're a medium bodied paint, so essentially we are a little bit more fluid out of the bottle instead of being kind of thick and goopy. Essentially what this amounts to is that you're going to use the paint pretty thick for base coats, and you may need to do a second coat if you're thinning it, which I often do, almost always do. But when you go to do any thinned application, which is the majority of the paint techniques that we use these days, is thinning the paint, right? So when you go to do layering, or you go to do a glaze, or you go to do a wash, or you're going any of that stuff, then Master Series won't require as much work to get it exactly where you want it. And also, there's a free class on the Reaper YouTube that I did a couple years ago, back in 2020, for the online ReaperCon. It's called Thinning MSP Paints. So when you do pick up some paint from us, you can go and watch that video, and I will tell you exactly how much to thin it for all of the techniques. So it'll essentially give you a good start. Keep in mind that if you are using a wet palette, then that's gonna vary it, because the wet palette's gonna kind of wick water into the paint to begin with. You may actually not need to thin much to get a lot of basic results, except for glazing or something like that. But if you're using a well like I do, then it'll help. I pretty much did that class specifically because I knew it would be up online forever. And for anybody coming into the line that's just starting with Reaper, like, it's a super valuable class. So it's essentially something we offer you free if you are getting into our paint. It is up there. It will stay up there forever unless YouTube goes down in a flaming mass of something. Yeah. So I just did a little stripey thing. Just makes it a little bit more interesting here. I don't want to go all the pale color down here to the ends because it runs up against this cream. So if I lighten the tips of the feathers here, I'll get less contrast. Now, I do get a little less contrast in through here, so if I really wanted to, I could maybe bring in a couple of highlights in here, but it gets muddy pretty quick because we've got all this freehand, so I'm not necessarily sure I want to do that. I think here I've got enough of the shape of the fan and the texture of the fan kind of displayed that you can see it, right? You can definitely see it here. So probably the only place here that I might bring in that little bit of a lighter highlight would be maybe toward the end of some of these little feathers, just a tiny touch to bring it out a little bit against the red there, just like that. But otherwise, I'd probably keep these mostly dark. Yeah, I mean, essentially just with a wet palette, also it depends, right? Because if you use a drier wet palette versus a very wet palette, because, some people have their paper pretty much floating on top of water, and some people don't use it nearly as wet. And that, of course, affects that in your paper, is going to affect how much water wicks up into your paint. But if you're using a very wet palette, then I wouldn't thin it at all. Like, I think you're actually going to be just fine. Do your base coats right after you put your paint down, before it gets too much water in it from the palette. And then everything else from there, you should be able to just use it and pick up a little more water when you need it. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Like, it will definitely like thin itself to a workable medium on your average wet palette after a while. All right, I'm going to put a little bit more up here toward the top, and then I'm going to come in with my pure white because I do want to bring this up even a little bit more. But yeah, MSP is just a different beast, and some people love it, and some people just prefer a more heavy-bodied paint, and that is cool. It all depends. Like, there's a particular suite of things that tend to go together, like thicker brushes, the wet palette, and thicker paint. And then thinner brushes, the well palette, and thinner paint. And those things all go together. Like the thins are on one side and the thicks are on the other. And I had never noticed this prior to taking Sergio's class, but when I took Sergio's class, he was like, bring a big brush, bring a big thick brush, like a number 2, something massive like this. And I had to work with that over the weekend, and over the course of it, I realized what the difference was. So essentially, if you gravitate toward a thicker paint style, which is more painterly, leaves brush strokes, does a lot of texture, things like that, then you probably, you can use MSP, just be aware that it's going to give you a lot more subtlety because it's just not going to stay as thick for as long on your palette. But it is going to do glazes really well. Like, the great power of MSP is that it's really good for glazing, washes, and fine layering if you're doing thin layers. All right, I want to do I want to color in some of that freehand, and I want to bring up the white on this feather. Yeah, I mean, that's why I say if you're just going to, like, stick your toe in, just order, like, pure white and pure black and be done. All right, let's see. I want to put my white highlight more toward the poofy part of the feather, which is more toward the middle. And I may have this paint just a little thick at this point. I wanted it a little thicker for doing the freehand etching, but of course it's gonna dry slowly in the palette, and I'm persnickety about the consistency at this point. She's coming along, Bull. She's like not the best thing we've painted this year, but she's coming along. Oh, I finished converting my my giant wolfen this weekend. We did it on stream. We've been doing all the sculpting on my stream. So I actually primed him. He is now ready for paint. Which means I probably should make some time in the evenings to actually work on him. Since I put, some obnoxious amount of time, like 10 hours into resculpting him. 10 or 12. So just gonna kind of focus my white highlights toward the center of each feather. Yeah, we did that on stream. So if you missed it, it's on a VOD, Bull. It didn't turn out quite like I expected it to turn out, but it turned out well enough. Okay. Get those little feathers so I can really bring up, then you can see there's definitely white and black bands. Allison, we will find out the exact count via x-ray, or close enough, within one usually. But we'll have an x-ray of the puppies later this month. I can't remember if it's like the 22nd of June. You do it within a week of birth. And you always want to get a count because then you're aware, like, if your dog is done or if there might be a puppy stuck in there. You know, there's all sorts of things. So we'll have a pup date at that point. The dog is confirmed pregnant if you missed that. So I am getting a puppy, almost pretty much 95% chance at this point. The only thing that would keep me from getting a puppy is if they're all boys. Or if there's only one girl and she has a serious, fault. Because I asked for a breeding quality puppy. So there is a small chance that I wouldn't get one. But there we go. Sweet. Oh yeah, we might need an exclamation point puppy. That's a good one. That's a really good one. We should do that. So yes. And the puppies are due to be born somewhere around the 28th of June, I believe. And then we'll know. If there are a lot of girls, then I am pretty much 100% getting a puppy. Also, we do have a puppy pool. I have had people guess the number of puppies and specifically then the number of girls. There are at least 5 or 6 puppies, and Shilohs are known to have up to 14. Although Bridget really hopes that it's not that many. Max mammals. I have minimal mammals right now. It's me and David, that's it. Alrighty. So then we got our nice little ostrich plumes. Yay! 14 is the record. That's because we have a big breed, gray wolf. Bigger breeds tend to have big litters. Still, 14 is a record, and we don't want to get there. Like, Bridget really does not want to get there. So, I think the most anybody has guessed is Carrie Michael Cosby currently guessed 10 puppies, 4 of them being girls. That's the highest guess we have right now. And then I have a 9. Dogfather guessed 9 with 5 girls. This is just for bragging rights, I think, unless I decide to do a small prize for it. But it's a fun thing that my dog community tends to do. When there's a really highly anticipated litter, we all tend to guess. Guess how many puppies. Litter of 13. 1 boy. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it happens, Red Links. David knew the probability math. David said if there were 7 puppies and they were all like one sex, all girls or all boys, 7 puppies, the odds of that happening are 1 in 64. Oh, Miss Stimp's gonna get. Hold on, let me see. Let me mark down. Let me mark you down, Miss Stimp. Hey, Coos. Miss Stimp is 9 and 4. Okay, nobody else has taken that yet, so you're good. I'm all for more girls, even though I'm a pessimist, and I said it was just going to be 7 with 2 girls because I know how the universe likes to troll me. And it would be just like the universe to just give me the choice of 2 girls and then make them really, really similar. I gotta write down Beguiler. Hold on. I'm gonna need a new sticky note. Let me see if somebody's done 8 and 4 already. We already have an 8 and 4. Twisted Oma did an 8 and 4. So, different, need a different one. Let's see here. We have 8 and 4 and 8 and 3. Okay, so we have a lot of 8s. We have 8 and 3, 8 and 4, and 8 and 5 already. So, if you want to guess 8, you'll have to guess a different number of girls. Okay, Beguiler gets 8 and 5. No, we've got 8 and 5. That's Crawley Hamster. So, you could guess 8 and 6 or 8 and 2 if you want 8. 8 and 6, Mobrock says. But 8 and 2 is still open. 10 pups, 8. All right, Red Lynx. You want Bridget to do a lot of work, don't you, Red Lynx? 8, or 10 and 8. Wow, that would give me a lot of choices. I think my head might explode. Big Eiler wants 9 and 6. Yeah, 9 and 6 totally open. Litter of 3. Yeah, smaller dogs tend to have smaller litters. Like Shelties, I think, like, tend to have between 4 and 6 pups, to give you an idea. And then, that's actually a small litter for Corgis. But, I mean, we have that happen, too, in Shilohs. Even though we have big dogs, we get litters of 2 or litters of 3. Usually if the breeding timing is off, or the girl just isn't, you know, for some reason it just doesn't work out as much. Or the, you know, all that. All right, let me see. Yes, I got Mo and Red Lynx and Beguiler all in here now. Sweet. Arrow Wiz, you wanted 8 and 3. And yeah, Shadow Raven has 8 and 3 already. I was wrong. Shadow Raven does have 8 and 3. So we've got, I should probably put these in order. We only have one person who guessed 6. We have a lot of, we have 7 and 4, but we don't have 7 and 5 or 6. But we only have, the only person who guessed 6 and 3. So Arrow is, give me a different guess. You could go 8 and 2. You could go 8 and 6. Oh wait, no, we just did an 8 and 6. Sorry. Can't do 8 and 6. 8 is pretty much like taken out, unless you're going to do 8 and 1 or 8 and 2. 6 and 2 for Polly. That would be a nice small litter. I know Bridget wants 7. Because she wants to do a oh, Arrowwiz got the 7 and 6. Or wait. I feel bad for Arrowwiz guessing everything and always being like cut down. So hold on. I'm going to make a, because you questioned Mark Noez Zeke and didn't commit. I don't know. Not that this matters at all. Because like I said, bragging rights alone. I'm going to give the 7 and 6 to Arrow because I was trying to help Arrow. So 7 and 6 on Arrow. That would probably also explode my brain because then I would have 6 puppies. So, okay. So now we've got all sorts of things. We'll stop in totally interrupting the stream. Although 7 and 5 is not yet taken. So the first person who speaks up for 7 and 5 will get that. All right. Let us get some more freehand on this. All right, 9 and 7 for Nomad. Marvel, I think you have to take 7 and 4 is already taken. So the only thing that's open under 7 right now is 7 and 5. We do not have a 7 and 5. So if you want 7 and 5, Marvel, I can write you down for that. But all the other 7s are taken. All right. Awesome. 7 and 5. Yeah, pretty much, I don't, like, it's like I want enough girls so that I have a choice so that, like, you know, we get different, like, temperaments and colors and all sorts of fun stuff. But you never want, like, too many choices. Because if you have too many choices, your brain explodes. You're just like, I don't know. Yeah, right. Exactly, Nomad Zeke. It could be. Well, and then you'd get bragging rights to the person who got closest. Which at this point is, like, the only person who guessed... The only 2 people who guessed 10 were Red Lynx and Carrie Michael, and Red Lynx would be closer because they guessed 10 with 8 girls. So that would be actually a very close guess. I would totally give it to them. Alrighty. I'm just going to do a little bit of highlight here on the pipe. That's really rare. It's just the laws of probability, Agent Marvel. Like I just mentioned a bit ago, David, my boy, who is a math genius, math PhD, like he could just do probabilities in his head. And he said the probability of getting an all-girls litter with 7 puppies is only 1 in 64. So less than a 1% chance. And the more of a big litter you have, the more, unlikely that kind of result is. I'm just going to do a little highlight here. Because it's like a coin flip. It's the odds of a coin flipping heads like 7 times in a row. Five cats. Typically when we do it in my community, my dog community, it's just for bragging rights. It's like, totally. It's like, it's always joked, do I win a puppy? Is always the joke. Especially with big litters. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a new morning routine once the doglet gets here. Because I'm going to have to take the doglet for a little bit of a walk. Kiri was an old dog, and she was easy because she didn't have a ton of energy. But a puppy is going to have a ton of energy, so I may need to start getting up a bit earlier. See what I sacrifice? I sacrifice my sleep to get a new puppy. That's just crazy. Why do we love these dog things so much? Or cat things. I guess cat things are easier, except you sacrifice sleep with them too, because then they like sit on your chest and say, rower, rower. Or they poke you with a paw on a piece of your face that you really don't want poked with a paw. See, I have had cats. Here on there's a little bit of a black border here, and I can't highlight it very much or it won't look black, but I can highlight the parts that are standing out a little bit more and darken the parts that are really recessed. So that means that with this black fringe of lace around her neck, around the bodice rather, some of this area just won't get any highlights. And that's just like the way it is, because if you highlight all of this, it'll look gray instead of black, this lacy bit. Now, if you do black lining on the interior, then you can get away with a little bit more because you've essentially put more black onto the area. So if I really like double down on my black lining on the interior part here, I don't want to get too far over the skin though, because I like the skin. But I can go a little bit more highlighting without making this area look gray. But with black, you have to be really careful and keep your highlights very small and very focused. Yeah, Kerniko, exactly. Yeah. So everybody, yes. So no matter what animal you have, you're getting up early. I have enjoyed, I miss Kiri like crazy, but I will not lie, I have enjoyed the last year and a half of sleeping in. Well, as much as I still get up at like 7:20, but that's relatively sleeping in. So, but now I'll sacrifice that for at least the beginning portion of the puppy life. Because I don't want a little puppy cannonball during the stream. I want the puppy to be to have gotten a nice little walk and be ready for snoozing again by the time of the stream. So just a little bit of highlight here on the top of the bodice. You can see that how I picked out a little bit of the lace here and there. And then I'll pick it out up here on top of the shoulders too. Yeah, I do prefer dogs, I think, for that sort of thing. Although Panther was pretty good. Panther's big thing was that he would, like, wake me up in the middle of the night and demand like a fresh food in his dish or fresh water or whatever. Like that would be the tax for him shutting up. And I don't miss that. Like I normally do wake up kind of midway through the night anyway, but that was just a bit much. So I think I'm going to be a dog person for a while. Those of you who have cats, I salute your fortitude. Because we love the little buggers and we do everything for them, but man, I'm past wanting that. Maybe I'll get a cat again when I'm too old to have a big dog. I do love them, but man. And some cats just aren't that annoying. Some cats have other foibles. I know my cat Ishtar, she was really good. I got really spoiled with her. She was my Abyssinian. She really had no annoying habits. I rescued her from the pound. I got lucky and got a purebred Abyssinian from the city animal control institution. All right. And we have to deal with this necklace too, but we're not there yet. Yeah, I loved my Abby. I would get another Abby in a second. She was very dog-like. She was just fantastic cat, Kariniko. Like, all of my friends were absolutely in love with her. She was just a really good kitty. Yeah, somewhat, Twisted Oma, somewhat. That's true. We'll see how this goes. I do enjoy training, and I do have a bit of experience with raising big dogs at this point. To not, like, pull me down the block, so I'm going to do a little bit of blocking in of little scallops. Like, kind of figuring out, like, the sizing I want. It's kind of like the sizing up there. Once I kind of figure out that that's the size I want, I can do little dots that are spaced evenly, more or less. You don't have to do it precise because we have a bunch of folds here and stuff. And so it's going to fool the eye anyway. Like, it doesn't really matter if you do them perfectly. They'll look good anyway. Was he raised by cats? Does he just think he's a cat, Grey Wolf? Yeah, my best friend when I was a kid, we're in the 4-H dog training project together. She had beagles, but now she's actually a like major award-winning field spaniel breeder. I reconnected with her few years back, just out of nowhere, and we were like laughing because we're both still into dogs. We both were in the same 4-H dog training class, and we became friends through it. And now we're both still doing dogs. But her dogs are always her dogs are beautiful. Like she's got some gorgeous field spaniels. Definitely meow setting. That's really funny. Some dogs are really good mimics, and they have a wide vocal range. So I'm just connecting the dots here to make these little scallops. And once again, you don't need to be perfect because the folds are going to mean they don't look perfect anyway. So it's nice to do this sort of simple pattern on a fabric that has folds because of that, you don't have to be perfect point. If you just get the shapes more or less right, you'll be fine. Yeah, Turgeon. I feel it because there's so many. I get angry whenever I see a poorly trained animal because it's really not like the animal's fault, right? It's the human's fault. I just get like kind of irate. I have to shut my mouth really hard on people who don't have well-trained animals. Especially if it's a big animal. because, like, if you have a big dog, you kind of have an obligation to get that dog, like, to train that animal, right? But then I get irritated, too, at people who have little animals and think that that means they don't have to have a well-behaved animal. So either way, it's like my red button issue, so I don't blame you. There are so many untrained animals out there. Or even if they're... Even if the dog is a good dog, but the human, as you say, isn't restraining it. At our national show this year, we had the dad of my puppy. He was there, which was nice. I really wanted to meet him in person. But he was, of course, he's a mix because this is an outcross litter. So essentially, he and his person were standing, like, you know, around the front, like, not right near, but kind of like off to the side of the front of the show ring. And one of the dogs came out, and the owner just wasn't, like, he was just like boing, boing at the end of his leash, right? And Floyd, who's my puppy's dad, is just like, woof. And everybody's like, oh, that dog is so reactive. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. That dog was barking because this dog was uncontrolled and bounded in his direction. That's not the fault of the dog who barked. That dog was uncomfortable with the fact that this dog was ping-ponging around like crazy, and a 90-pound shepherd ping-ponging around at the end of the leash is not reassuring. So, yeah. I always try to have my dogs under control. Sometimes we all drop the ball, but... Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we had the same. We had chows across our back fence in Texas that were just they were pegged out all day, chained out all day. They used to rush the fence at our dogs, and our dogs were very not happy with that. I don't know. I just wish people would take better care of their animals. When it comes down to the heart of everything, I'm just an animal lover who wants to see animals and people happily getting along. Like, that's it. That's where I live. That's where my heart lives. Now I'm going to take my black a little bit, and I'm going to maybe trim up these lines just a tad. If I want to thin them down. I could mix up my dark red for this as well, or use walnut. Since it's such a dark red, though, I can get away with using the black, because the black is thinned down. I can always bring back a little red if I want to. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it gets hard. Like, I will not... Okay, I have raised enough dogs to know that it is not easy to get a well-trained dog, especially when you've got more than one person in the household and you're not consistent. Because inevitably somebody will, like, allow the dog to do X when the other person is trying to train the dog to do Y, and the dog gets confused, and it's not the dog's fault. So it's a thing. It's hard. It's not easy. That's why when I see somebody in public with an amazingly well-trained dog, I go out of my way to compliment them. Because I know that it's not easy, and that it takes a lot of work. Yeah, I mean, if the Rotties aren't really known for that, though, Grey Wolf. Like, you know, there's always exceptions. At least he got a breed that's not like a chaser. Like, if it was like an Irish Wolfhound, I would be worried, because that dog's got prey drive. Might be okay with a Rottie, though. And you never know, like that elderly gentleman could have decades of experience with that breed too, you know? Depends. He could also just have a big dog because he wanted a big dog. But you just never know. Yeah, right. And that's good, Kerniko, that you like understand that it's a time investment and a care investment. And you're right. A lot of people have dogs because they're cute and they think they want a dog, and it is what it is. We will not change the world on this one overnight. That's why I compliment people with well-trained dogs though. Positive reinforcement, never wasted. And when I see people like new puppy owners who are out with their puppy and trying to do a good job of socializing and training, I always compliment them too. So that they don't give up, because I know it can be frustrating. We have a lot of actually pretty well-trained dogs around here, so I have hope that maybe my puppy will be able to find a friend. It's not like super... It's not important to me for my puppy to be able to play with other dogs so much, but I want my puppy to be comfortable around other dogs, so... So there we've got like a little scallop pattern. I like that. So now I'm going to fill it in with my gold base coat. Oh yeah, how are you doing, Kuro, on that? We had that actually, missed him, with Leo, back when I was with Zach. Because Zach had a Mazda Miata when I met him. And it's, you know, tiny, tiny car. And Leo was like a year old, and he was used to being able to get into my element. So we took him outside in the front yard. He was all excited, and he saw Dad's car down at the curb. And of course, all cars must be awesome. So Leo like went and put his front end into the driver's seat, and that was all he could fit. And he was just very confused. He's like, "Wait, this is a car. I should be able to get into it. I was so excited, and now only part of me fits." It was pretty darn fun. Yeah. It can be dangerous, Grey Wolf. It just depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the dog. I mean, Rotties are used for emotional support dogs because they tend to be, as a breed, very stable. I've done, if they're well-bred, I've done a litter evaluation on a litter of Rottweilers, and very, very stable puppies. Very, very confident. Not hair-triggered. Not a lot of drive, just kind of there. Very different from shepherds. I'll say that. All right, gonna get some rich leather here and just kind of put in, kind of block in over the top of this white to get a gold color going on. Yeah, Rhodesian Ridgebacks are nice dogs. A well-bred Rottie's a nice dog too. It's not my look, it's not my feel, because I do love the I love the herding dog urge to engage with their human. Like, because I really like to train dogs, and I like to kind of like really have a dog that's, you know, human focused. But I can see the attraction with the Rottweilers and the Ridgies, because yeah, they're just very solid dogs. Very stable, solid dogs. The best of them. Like, as the breed is supposed to be. Yeah, they're really, I mean, I know a very good breeder in Texas, or maybe she's in Oklahoma. She's either in North Texas or in Oklahoma. She was the one I did the litter evaluation. Bridget and I did a litter evaluation for her. And now she regularly has Bridget do her litter evaluations. She really thinks it's cool. But yeah, she's nice dogs. Driver, not so much. That's funny, missed him. But yeah, shepherds are generally working dogs. all of them, like all the different types of shepherds. Shilohs are Shiloh shepherds, but they are our breed. Some of our puppies need a job to do and some don't. We breed for a little bit lower drive because we want a more easily handled family dog, especially considering that Shilohs can get up over 100 pounds. So that can be hard to... That's exactly the thing you'd worry about with... That's why I don't feel that our breed is necessarily the right one for an elderly person. Like, I would actually, weirdly, say that the Rottweiler is a better choice for an elderly person who wants a big dog than a Shiloh Shepherd. Because Shilohs do have that go mentality. They have that they want to do stuff mentality. Many of them do. Few of them are true couch potatoes. They would rather be doing something with you. They're not a true working dog in the, like, Malinois or Belgian Tervuren, sheepdog kind of way. Or even in the German Shepherd way. But... still not as, like, rock solid as the Shiloh Shepherd. That's the breed I have had. Maze. Ugh, I keep calling you Mage, and you're Maze. You can, they're a breed that was created in America by a lady who used to breed working German Shepherds and who decided she wanted a more family-oriented, healthier hipped dog. Healthier hips. And she's passed away now, but the breed is being still carried forward. All right, there we go. So just pretty much blocking in. And putting the white down first just makes the freehand still stand out when I put this color over the top. And this is another way that Master Series are good, because when you do that underpainting, because the paint still has a little bit of translucency to it, you can really still see the underpainting. Oh no! Oh no! I'm sorry, Kuriko. Oh, nice, Redlink. You have a collie. I really love collies. I've loved collies since I was small. That's why we had a Shetland sheepdog. My parents would not get me a full-size collie. They got me a Sheltie instead when I was a kid. So I had a miniature collie. But I've always loved collies. There's a lady across the street from us here who walks her collie every day. That's cool that you figured out what the problem was, Twisted Oma. It is funny how, like, one dietary thing can really throw you, right? Like, for me, it was tomatoes. Like, diagnosing. And dropping the gluten really helped me, too. But, like, lactose intolerance and, like, celiac and things like that, they can cause serious issues if you don't know what it is. So I'm happy that they diagnosed you. And that your lactate is helping. That's always a relief. Like when you suddenly feel normal again. Or normal-ish. Yeah. I had a Great Dane walk up to me and get yelled at the other day, Ulfin. And I kind of looked at the owner and went, it's okay. I like big dogs. I'll say hi. I mean, I do wish that she'd been on a leash, but yeah. That is something we do have around here, is we do have the tendency for people to let their dogs off leashes when they're not supposed to in our parks. The park I used to live next to did have an off-leash dog zone because it was big enough and had a fence around it with only a couple of openings, but... All right, so again, I'm going to do one scallop. And this is easy because these little folds are so equidistant that I can almost just put a little scallop at each point and I would be okay. Although it's a little bit different. So we'll do a dot here. Oh. And whenever you notice that your paint is having trouble coming off the end of your brush, it's probably you need to add a little water to your paint. Good philosophy, Shadow Raven. Alrighty. So just kind of spacing out little dots so that we can do connect the dots. Connect the dots make all freehand much easier. Alrighty. So that one got a little bit wonky, but that's okay. I can trim it up. You can see it's kind of a wonky shape. Hell, Kariniko, I'd argue people need boundaries. I'd argue dogs and people are very similar, and both of us need boundaries. Not enough boundaries in the world, folks, on either side of that species divide. So I tried to round it out, and I kind of made it thicker, so I need to thin it down. Yeah, it's just a shame. There. So then I bring in my black, and I can kind of sculpt that a little bit, so it's more of a uniform loop until it's the right shape. This one's got a little wobbly also. And sometimes it's not actually wobbly, but it just looks that way because of the way the folds are impacting it. So don't always just correct your freehand. Kind of look at it like face on. Like this one totally looks wonky from this angle, but then it looks fine from straight on. So keep in mind that the uneven nature of the cloth is going to distort stuff. Yay. So let's see, it's Monday. So that means it's Rhonda Day. Isn't that right, Quindy? Sometimes I'll do a third dot at kind of the right height so that I can just connect the 3 dots into my little arch here. What is Rhonda working on recently on her show? Does she have projects like I do, or is she a different topic every week? I need to clean that one up big time. Oh, have a good lunch, Shadow Raven. Oh, yep, and Crowley. Have a good meeting. She does different topics. Cool. Alrighty, well, we'll do just a little bit more. I want to get all these little rings done here and then put my gold over them. So then we'll be set up to do some gold highlighting. We did get some highlights on our plume and our pipe. I was thinking about what I wanted to do on the white as well. If I want to do even more like crazy freehand on the big panels of white. If we start doing too much freehand, it's going to take forever to finish this model. That's the thing. You can do a simple paint job in a pretty short period of time on this mini. Because she is, I mean, she's got an elaborate dress, but it's fairly simple when you get down to it. But then if you decide to do freehand all over it, you can easily double the time you have invested in the model. So look out, like how much you take on. There's a lot of room, sure. It would just take a long time to finish this mini. So I just got to figure out how much time I really want to be spending on this model and if I will get bored. Because that's something you always need to ask yourself. You have this ambitious idea, but are you really going to get bored before you finish it? You should ask yourself that. We all know that sometimes we start a thing and then we get bored and we just don't finish it. So it's a real thing. So do know thyself. Painter, know thyself. Yeah. That's good, Twisted Oma. Good for you. That's kind of how I noticed tomatoes were my issue. I was having V8 at work, and I was always kind of feeling a little bit dicey afterwards. And then one night I had a Bloody Mary when I was out with friends, and it was all over. I was like, okay, never again. Like, I felt terrible after that. So then tomatoes became poison, and now I'm happy. I figured it didn't make you mad. It's just fun to use the Luca face shaking his fist emote. Like, one of the best emojis. Don't tell him that, though. It'll make his head fat. Alright, so now we're going to paint our rich leather over the top. And then at the end of the stream, I'll show you guys my Wolfie that I finished sculpting. Now that he's got primer on him, I can see all of my green work, and if I messed it up, and have to do more. But I think he looks okay. David looked at him and didn't immediately find something to complain about, so. Yeah, it is really a great emote. Alrighty, there we go. So we did little things today, but these little touches really helped. So now we've got some gold down there in the bottom of the dress, and that's really nice, actually. That picks up these little guys, these little fan shapes, and makes them a little fancier, which I really like. The other thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to paint white over the top of these little baubles. I'll probably do them in gold. They look like gemstones, but the problem with doing them as gemstones is they're just way too small. You could do the middle one as a gemstone if you wanted to. I could do the middle one and do it in this lighter red. That might be a good decision if I was going to do that. But these little side ones, they're too tiny. They really just need to be gold studs, in my opinion. There definitely is a limit as to like these big round gems. These can be actual gems down here. Yeah. Poison for me too. I just do stevia monk fruit, and I only do a few packets a day. There we go. So 2 little gold studs on either side, so that's nice. And I'll leave that open to maybe being a lighter red gemstone. And I might do the lighter red gemstone on these guys too. We started a few minutes late, so the other thing we can do is block in this the gold around these gems down here. And on the bottom of this one. And that helps cover up almost all. Oh, we've got gold earrings we've forgotten as well. Give her a bling. And I'm going to leave the little strand of pearls on top of the head for now, because I don't think I want it to be gold. I may need to make it just red, like little red beads or something like that. Leaving it white, sadly, is going to make it look like it's unpainted. So I got to question whether I want to do that, but I need something that contrasts with the hair. So the answer might be this lighter red. All right, so we're pretty good. And then this necklace we really have to tackle. It's got us really small details on it. So we're going to have to underpaint that as well, but I'm not going to tackle it here at the end of the stream because it'll take a while. Alrighty. So there we go, guys. I think she's looking pretty okay. We're filling in more and more and more. So we are really getting to the point where she's starting to like look a lot closer to done. Like she's getting really close. I'm probably going to highlight and shade the cream, and then I'm going to make a call whether I want to do more freehand on it. Maybe some simple freehand. Probably not something as small as up here. Maybe some bigger freehand on the white underdress. So, yeah, I think I'm really happy with her, Quindy. She's turned out really well. I've always liked this figure and wanted to paint it because of the fancy dress, and I think these are good colors. Yeah. So it works. Oh, now I'll show you guys my Wolfie real quick before we end. So, for those who have not been following on my stream, I have this awesome werewolf, but I didn't like his head very much. So you can see all the green here. That's all the resculpting I did. So lots of resculpting on the front. There's more resculpting on the top of the head. The entire top of the head has been resculpted. And the same amount of work actually on this side as there was on this side for the green. You can just, the primer didn't quite get as far on this side, but you can really see it. You can see it like I resculpted the entire side of the head pretty much all up to the top of the nose and across the top of the head. So I really love him from this angle. I feel like the face is really good from this angle. So I did all that. There's some, just some filling. We actually resculpted the back of the arm so that it had a defined triceps on it and an elbow because I changed the position of it. And the other thing I did is that all of this, like this chunk of green, like right in here, that's all sculpted. He actually, his head was really sitting on his shoulders before, but I wanted him to have a longer neck, especially because I wanted his head to really curve to the side, like he's about to nom on somebody. So I did that. I actually lengthened his neck by a good between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch. And he goes on his rock. Ah, get on your rock. I want to show people you on your rock. There, rock. We're going to go up in the air, up in the air. So this is, the base model is by Journeyman Miniatures, but he's got that. And then he's got his arm that comes down in front. He's resting on his dagger, his short sword, like so. And then he's got a tail, but I can't hold it all on at the same time. And his sword is like way out here. So he's down on his dagger, and he's got this really wicked sword up here. And he's coming over the top of the rock. So that is my project that I finally finished all the sculpting on. Yay! It took us like 4 or 5 weeks on my stream. And there's a little bit I want to do on the base, like to just change up the rock a little bit. But yes. Yes, he is going to eat someone very, very soon. So now I'm so excited that I can start painting him. Just wanted to share my little Wolfie project with y'all, because I know a lot of you don't have time to watch me on Saturdays. He's just a tiny Wolfie project. Just so little. So thank you for coming. Yes. Yeah, the painting will begin. So tomorrow is bust day, peeps. You know, you remember this. The bust. It's a bust day. So I probably tomorrow we'll see how I feel. It's either going to be working on the whites and the top of the feathers. Like I got the shadows more or less on, but I didn't really get the highlights on there, and I haven't added the red at all. And I'd like to bring up a bit of the white here as well. And then I totally forgot the hat band. Like the hat band is totally not done. So that needs to be at least base coated. That'll be red and gold. But yes, 2 p.m. for Rhonda. Do eat. Come back. See her. And then come back tomorrow to watch the bust. And yes, I will miss you then, missed him. Have fun. All right, everybody. I'm off, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a lovely rest of your day.